Hello, my friends! A rainy day in Nuremberg, or Nürnberg, because we're going to the Nuremberg Castle in Nuremberg. Yes. My Airbnb host was nice enough to let me borrow this umbrella, because there's a 100% chance of rain today, and it's really cold. It's like 5 degrees away from freezing. So it's a perfect day to explore the castle. I don't know if it's a perfect day to explore the castle, but this is the only day we get to explore the castle. So I'm gonna be hanging out with this guy. I have a feeling that the YouTube algorithm is gonna choose him as my thumbnail. Because I don't make the thumbnails. It chooses it. It's usually, it seems like when there's at least one person in there, or if you got some smiles, that's the one. That's the one. We're gonna see. I'm really curious. Rainy day at the market. Not a whole lot of people out and about. Now, Nuremberg, a lot of Nuremberg got destroyed during the Second World War. This city was very important to the Nazi establishment. It's where the Nuremberg rallies were held. And because it was so important, that's particularly why they chose it as a place to hold the Nuremberg trials at the end of the Second World War, to put the Nazis on trial for their crimes. So because this city was so important to the Nazis, they defended it very hard, and because of that, much of the city was destroyed. Many civilians were killed, thousands, during the trying to take the city. So when it was rebuilt, it wasn't as rebuilt entirely. Only certain parts, historical areas were rebuilt. For the most part, everything else moved up in the world, stayed a little bit more modern. So you're not going to see as much history on every corner because a lot of that history was destroyed. A lot of the area that I'll be exploring today was restored for its historical significance. And that's where we're going right now. Nuremberg Castle. I am outside the fortifications. Walking along, trying to find a way in. We're gonna see if this works. No, I couldn't get in that way. We will find another way. Okay, I think we found the entrance. At least there's no gate. Must be a good sign. The Imperial Castle of Nuremberg. One of the most important imperial palaces of the Middle Ages. Built between 1550 and 1571. Constantly being fortified and renovated. Here we are in the Castle Plaza, about to begin our tour. We got a nice big tour today, and that's okay. Now, most of the castle's history dates back to the Holy Roman Empire. This was a very prominent place then, a very important palace, seen as the heart of the Holy Roman Empire. So here begins our adventure. Our first step is the royal court. This is a room where they would pass judgment. It was later named the Emperor's Hall. The last, one of the last and most complete Romanesque style architecture of the Stoffer period of history. It was also called a double chapel because down below the masses of the people could congregate down there, and then up here the royalty, the nobles. So in a way the people could feel like they were a part of service with the kings. They could share. The lower chapel was only accessible by the outer yard, while to get up here you had to come through the hall. That way to separate the royalty from the commoners. Very tiny stairs for very tiny people. Here we're at the upper landing of the church. Upper landing. Now you can get an audio tour that's in English to help explain a lot of this, but that's okay. We're all right just exploring on our own. Now, the kings of the Holy Roman Empire were seen as elected by divine right. They identified with the tradition of ancient Rome. Therefore, the king employed the title Rex Romanum, which means King of the Romans. Many of the Holy Roman emperors would go to Rome, where the Pope was at the time, to get their imperial declaration, so their rule could be seen as sovereign. The wood floorings in here are authentically loud, which is why I can't really walk and talk to find a place to stop moving. The emperor's relics that he would often hold in paintings and statues. Some of the destruction from World War II. As you can see, the castle remained mostly undamaged except for the main hall. Some really good paintings here of emperors. You'll notice each one gets more and more dramatic with the flair as they go on through the years. The coats of arms were very important to show off the local princes and their divine authority. As you can see, there's even some on the ceiling of this waiting room. And this room led to the chambers. There is the Nuremberg castle. And here is Nuremberg. And what rules Nuremberg but the crown? One interesting thing about the Holy Roman Empire is they didn't actually have a capital city. Nuremberg was seen as a place where the courts were held. They would have court days, but because the emperor, the princes were so busy, they had to keep moving around. They had to keep going from city to city. They'd stay in different places. So there really was no capital city. And now it's time to see the fort. Some armaments. Those eyes have seen some shit. There are no replicas, according to the sign. Pepper grinders, I know that. Here we have a crossbow with some bolts that the families would etch their names onto so they know who shot what. One thing I found interesting was this, the bullet crossbow. A crossbow that was shot little bullets out. It was good for hunting, apparently, for shooting birds. If you look out the window here, you can actually see the training yard for the crossbowmen, which apparently is still active even today. They'll have meets for shooting crossbows. The artist and astronomer George Christoph Immert set up an observatory near the castle in 1677. Here we have an artist's representation of what it would have looked like back then. Here we have all the various helmets throughout time. As you can see, some of the older ones have not done so well. And you got beasts like this thing. Turtle. The Sturmhaube helmet was one of the most popular in southern Germany. As you can see, it looks very similar to some of the helmets you end up seeing in World War II. Now, while swords were seen as a more honorable form of combat, it was pole arms that became more popular due to their reach, the ability for knights on horseback to make good use of them. So there's lots of different types.
Now, you may know this already, but crossbows, when they were first came out, were seen as unchristian and not very honorable. But that soon changed once people saw the power and how easy it was for anybody to use one. It took a while for some lords and courts to admit that the longbow was over. Later on, in about the 1830s, armor was no longer needed, so it was seen more as ceremonial. So the piece you see here has no defensive purposes at all. In this room, we have a lot of early weaponry. Donner machine, or thunder machine, is what the early guns were called. And there was all different types and styles that were being developed all around Europe. Germany, in particular, put a lot of research into guns. They thought it was a game changer on the battlefield, and it was. Absolutely. So there's so many different types of cannons and guns that were being developed. Some examples of some more helmets that were designed in the late game, more as a ceremonial, or knights would be buried with them. They were not often used for war at this point. The armorers of their day were considered, in a lot of ways, what we see fashion designers now. They were renowned throughout Europe. Italian and German specifically were very good at making armor. They'd be called upon by kings and princes from all over the land to come make them armor and their knights' armor. Even though firearms were very popular now and growing, swords still retain their importance on the battlefield. They became more advanced in how they could make them and design them for their deadly force and effort. The blackening of armor was less so much for looks, but it was actually a way to prevent rust. It was a way for them to keep multitudes of armor in storage for the case of an attack or something important. They could pull it out and they wouldn't have to worry about the rusting. This guy doesn't know what he's doing. I'm curious to find out what this is. It's almost like an earthquake thing. I see them in almost every room. Well, that was a nice tour of the castle museum. There's still some stuff here that's under construction. Renovations or something. Right now we're gonna head to what's called the Deep Well. Wow, that really ain't no how do you start that again? That ain't no regular well. That is indeed a deep well. Very impressive. Very cool. All the history over the years. They originally built the well in the 12th century. She was saying in the 15th century they found pieces of a cat inside the well. So everybody was scared after that. Nobody would drink from the well anymore. Take a look at that view. Well, my friends, that was a great adventure in Nuremberg Castle. Really liked that place. Very nice, wonderful views, great history. So what's next? Well, I'm going to McDonald's to use their Wi-Fi to find a place to eat. Well, that was a nice place to have a beer and some sausages, some Nuremberg sausage and some Nuremberg beer. And now it's time to go wander, explore, probably drink another beer. We're gonna take it slow, take it easy. You know how much I love taking it easy. Rainy day in Nuremberg. Crossing over the bridge, heading back to my place of stay. Just to relax for a little while before going out again. The most of my plans was to see the Nuremberg castle, and I did it. I actually woke up early for it. It was good. Now I'm just gonna enjoy the city, walk around, take a look, have a bite to eat. Well, my friends, that is it for Nuremberg. It's been a good day. I just had a little dinner. Taking it, oh gosh. I'm taking it easy for the rest of the night.